40 million people tried a mirror ritual they found on TikTok. Most of them saw nothing. But a few of us did. We were on a video call when we followed the instructions: 3 taps, a circle, and a sentence no one understood. What appeared in my mirror wasn't a ghost. It was me. Only older. Broken. And begging me not to let him out. If you're watching this because you're curious, don't try it. This isn't a story about a haunted mirror. It's about what happens when your reflection wants to take your place. We tried a TikTok mirror ritual. Now my reflection is trying to escape. The screen went black except for my face, illuminated by the phone's camera light. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide with something between excitement and fear. Behind me, I could hear Jess breathing heavily, and Marcus somewhere off to my left, his nervous laughter barely audible over the pounding of my heart. "Are you sure about this?" Jess whispered, her voice crackling through my earbuds. I didn't answer. Instead, I raised my hand to the mirror in my bathroom, fingers trembling as they hovered an inch from the glass. The TikTok video had been specific. 3 taps. Clockwise circle. Then the words. Simple enough that 40 million people had tried it. But only a handful had posted follow-up videos, and those who did looked different. Changed. Their eyes carried something heavy, something old. "Guys, if this is fake, I'm never trusting the internet again," Marcus said, trying to sound brave. I tapped once. Twice. 3 times. The sound echoed in my small bathroom, louder than it should have been. Then I traced a circle on the mirror's surface, my fingertips squeaking against the glass. That's when I said the words that would unravel everything I thought I knew about reality. "Show me what lives between." For a moment, nothing happened. Just my reflection, just my bathroom, just the ordinary world I'd lived in for 17 years. Then the mirror rippled. Not like water, more like the air above hot asphalt on a summer day, a distortion that made my stomach drop. "Holy shit," Marcus breathed. The ripple spread outward from where my finger had traced the circle. And in that distortion, I saw him for the first time. A man. Standing exactly where I was standing, but he wasn't me. He wore clothes I didn't own, a gray hoodie torn at the shoulder, jeans stained with something dark. His face was mine, but older. Harder. And his eyes, God, his eyes looked like they'd seen the world end. He was crying. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear through the glass. But I could read his lips. 3 words, over and over: "Don't let me, don't let me, don't let me." Then Jess screamed, and the connection broke. I stumbled backward, my phone clattering into the sink. When I looked up again, the mirror was just a mirror. My own reflection stared back, pale and shaking, but alone. Just me. Just the bathroom. Just the impossible memory of what I'd seen. "What the fuck was that?" Marcus's voice came through my phone speaker, tinny and scared. I picked up my phone with trembling hands. The video call showed Marcus in his bedroom, curtains drawn, face ghost white in his computer monitor's glow. Jess's screen was black, but I could hear her shallow breathing. "Jess?" I called out. "Jess, you okay?" Her screen flickered to life, showing her bedroom ceiling. She must have dropped her phone. "I saw him too," she whispered. "In my bathroom mirror. He was reaching through the glass. Trying to push through. His hands were pressing against the surface from the other side." "This isn't funny anymore," Marcus said, but there was no accusation in his voice. Just terror. "We need to delete the videos." "We need to." "What videos?" I asked, confused. "The ritual videos. The ones we posted. Emma, check your TikTok." I opened the app with numb fingers. My last post showed me performing the ritual, but the video was different from what I remembered recording. In the posted version, I could see him in the mirror behind me the entire time. Standing there. Watching. Waiting. And in the final frame before the video ended, his hand was pressed against the glass, fingers splayed wide, like he was testing the barrier's strength. The video had been up for 7 minutes. It already had 200,000 views. The comments were worse. "Why did you do it again? You weren't supposed to break the second seal. He's been waiting so long. You shouldn't have opened 3 mirrors at once. May God have mercy on you." "I didn't break anything," I muttered, scrolling through the flood of warnings and accusations. "It was just a stupid challenge." But even as I said it, I knew something was wrong. The air in my bathroom had changed. It felt heavy now, pressurized, like being underwater. And every reflective surface, the mirror, the chrome faucet, the dark screen of my phone when it timed out, showed the same thing. Him. Always him. Getting closer. The next morning, I woke up to 1,500 missed notifications. My TikTok video had gone viral overnight, spawning thousands of response videos. Most were teenagers trying the ritual themselves, filming their bathroom mirrors with shaking hands and nervous laughter. But scattered among them were other videos. Older videos. Some dated back years. One showed a girl in her 20s, filming herself in a hotel bathroom in 2019. She'd done the ritual, and she'd seen the man. "If you're watching this," she said to the camera, tears streaming down her face, "don't try to communicate with him. Don't look at him directly. He's not a ghost. He's you from a timeline that's collapsing. And every time someone performs the ritual, every time someone opens another window, you pull him closer to our reality." The video had 3 views. The account was deleted. I found another one from 2021. A middle-aged man in Seattle, speaking directly to the camera with the calm of someone who'd already accepted their fate. The ritual wasn't created to summon anything. It was designed as a seal. A warning system. When you see the man in the mirror, your other self, it means the walls between timelines are degrading. It means somewhere, somehow, a version of you made choices that led to total collapse. And that dying timeline is looking for an exit. His account was gone too. I was still watching videos when Jess called, her face filling my screen. She looked like she hadn't slept. Behind her, I could see her bedroom window, and in the reflection of the glass, I saw him. Just standing there in her room, visible only in reflections, watching her with those ancient, exhausted eyes. "Emma, I can't take this anymore," she whispered. "He's everywhere. Every mirror, every window, every screen. I tried covering them, but I can see him in the metal of my doorknob. In the surface of my water glass. He's not even trying to hide anymore. What does he want? I don't know. But Emma," her voice cracked. "I did some research. Really deep research. There's this forum, buried under layers of dark web bullshit, where people talk about the man in the mirror. They call him the displaced. And according to them, he doesn't want to hurt us. He wants to replace us." A chill ran down my spine. "Replace us? I don't know. But Emma," her voice cracked. "I did some research. Really deep research. There's this forum, buried under layers of dark web bullshit, where people talk about the man in the mirror. They call him the displaced. And according to them, he doesn't want to hurt us. He wants to replace us." A chill ran down my spine. "Replace us? Think about it. We saw someone who looks exactly like us. Someone who's us, but from a timeline that's dying. And every time we perform the ritual, every time we weaken the barrier between realities, we give him more strength to push through. The ritual was never entertainment. It was a warning. Someone, sometime, figured out how to detect when a parallel timeline was degrading. And they created this ritual as a way to seal the cracks. But TikTok turned it into a game. I looked at my own reflection in my phone screen, and there he was. The other me. Closer now. I could see the desperation in his expression, the way his mouth formed words I still couldn't hear. His hands were pressed against the invisible barrier between our worlds, and I could swear I saw the glass, or whatever separated us, beginning to bend under the pressure. "How do we fix it?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would be bad. Jess was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was hollow. "The forum posts all end the same way. They say once you've performed the ritual, once you've established a connection, the only way to stop the displaced from fully crossing over is to eliminate all reflective surfaces from your environment. Completely. And I mean everything, Emma. No mirrors, no screens, no water, no glass, no metal. You'd have to live in total darkness, unable to see your own face for the rest of your life. Because the moment you see your reflection again, he'll use it as a doorway. That's insane. The alternative is worse. According to the posts, if the displaced fully crosses over, he doesn't kill you. He synchronizes with you. He merges. And you'll remember everything he remembers, every moment of watching his world die, everyone he loved turning to dust, the complete heat death of his timeline. One person who let it happen described it as wearing someone else's apocalypse as a second skin. She killed herself 3 days later. I wanted to argue, to say this was all elaborate internet fiction designed to scare people. But I could feel him now. Not just see him in reflections, but feel him. Like a pressure at the back of my mind, a presence that was definitely me but also terrifyingly foreign. He was tired. So tired. And he was desperate to rest, even if that rest meant hijacking my existence. "Marcus hasn't answered any of my texts," I said suddenly. Jess's expression darkened. "I know. I drove by his house an hour ago. All the curtains are drawn. There's a sign on the door that says, "Do not enter." Emma, I think he's already trying to seal himself away. I tried to go to school on Monday, but I made it exactly 13 minutes before I had to leave. The bathroom mirrors showed him in every stall. The windows reflected him standing among the students in the hallway. Someone's phone screen caught the light at just the right angle, and I saw him there too, pressed against the digital glass, his expression shifting from desperate to angry. He knew I was running. Mrs. Patterson caught me in the hallway on my way out. "Emma, are you all right? You look pale." I tried to answer, but my eyes caught on her glasses, on the reflection in those lenses, and there he was. Both lenses showed him, as if he was standing right where I was standing, occupying my exact space but in a different frequency of reality. "I'm sick," I managed to say, pushing past her. I drove home with my eyes fixed on the road, avoiding the rearview mirror, avoiding the shine of the dashboard, avoiding even glancing at my phone. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for 5 full minutes, trying to build up the courage to go inside. My phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize. The ritual was performed 847 times in the last 48 hours. You weren't the first. You won't be the last. But you were one of the anchors. You, Jessica, and Marcus. 3 mirrors activated simultaneously creates a triangulation point. A weak spot in reality. He's using all 3 of you as doorways. If even one of you succeeds in letting him through, he can use that breach to reach the others. You need to decide, darkness forever, or apocalypse worn as a memory. There is no third option. I deleted the message, but the words burned in my mind. Inside my house, my mother was cooking dinner, humming along to some song on the radio. Normal. Everything looked normal. But I could see him in the reflection of the oven door, in the microwave's black screen, in the polished surface of the refrigerator. He was in my house now, visible from every angle, and he looked more solid than before. More real. "Emma, honey, you're home early," Mom said without turning around. I couldn't tell her. How could I explain that I'd broken reality with a TikTok challenge? That there was a dying version of me trying to claw its way into our world? That every reflective surface in our house was now a potential doorway for an apocalypse made flesh? "I'm not feeling well," I said. "I'm going to lie down." In my room, I immediately grabbed my desk lamp and smashed every mirror I owned. The large one over my dresser. The compact in my makeup bag. Even the tiny one on my keychain. Glass shattered and scattered across my floor, and for just a moment, I felt relief. Then I saw him in the fragments. Not just in one piece of broken glass, but in all of them. Dozens of him, hundreds of him, each shard showing the same desperate face from a slightly different angle. The breaking hadn't stopped him. It had multiplied the doorways. I swept up the glass with trembling hands, wrapped it in newspaper, and threw it in my outdoor trash can. But when I came back inside and washed my hands, he was there in the water pooling in the sink basin, his face distorted but unmistakable. My phone rang. "Marcus. I'm already in darkness," he said without preamble. His voice sounded strange, hollow, like he was speaking from the bottom of a well. I covered every reflective surface in my house. Painted over the mirrors. Covered the windows. Disconnected all the screens. I'm sitting in my basement right now with the lights off, and Emma, I can still feel him. He's here. In the darkness. I think the darkness is reflective too, in a way we don't understand. I think he exists in the absence of light the same way he exists in reflections. I think we're fucked. Marcus. I saw the forum posts Jess found. I read deeper. There's a reason all those accounts are deleted, Emma. It's not because the people running them wanted to disappear. It's because they succeeded. They let the displaced cross over, and when you merge with a version of yourself from a collapsed timeline, you inherit their fate. You don't just remember their apocalypse. You become part of its propagation. You become a carrier. And the first thing the merged entity does is delete all evidence of the ritual to prevent anyone from sealing the cracks they need to spread to other timelines. The line went dead. I tried calling him back, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried Jess. Same thing. I was alone. That night, I tried to sleep with all the lights on and sheets draped over anything that could possibly show a reflection. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt him. That pressure in my mind growing stronger, more insistent. And with it came flashes of memory that weren't mine. I remembered standing in a city I'd never visited, watching the sky crack open like broken glass. I remembered the sun flickering out, not gradually but all at once, like someone flipping a switch. I remembered the silence that followed, not peaceful silence, but the silence of a universe holding its breath before collapsing. I remembered running, always running, trying to find a way out, a way back, a way to anywhere that wasn't ending. And I remembered finding the mirrors. The weak points. The places where reality's walls were thin enough to see through to other timelines, other versions of Earth where the sun still shone and people still lived and nothing had broken yet. I remembered learning the ritual. Not from TikTok, but from necessity. From desperation. The ritual that was supposed to be a seal, a warning, but that could be reversed. Could be weaponized. Could be used to claw your way from a dying world into a living one. I remembered seeing her. Seeing me. This version of me, 17 and stupid and alive, living in a timeline that still had tomorrow. And I remembered wanting so badly to warn her, to tell her not to open the door, to let me die with my world. But I also remembered being so tired. So absolutely exhausted from running, from surviving, from existing in a place where existence itself was unraveling. And I remembered making the choice. The selfish, desperate choice to push through anyway. To take her life, her world, her reality, because mine was already lost. I woke up screaming. Except I wasn't sure I'd been asleep. And I wasn't sure whose memories I'd just experienced. The sun rose on Tuesday morning, and I made a decision. If covering reflections didn't work, if darkness didn't work, if there was truly no way to stop the displaced from crossing over, then I needed to understand what would happen when he did. I needed to know what I was about to become. I opened my laptop, the screen showed him immediately, more solid than ever, and dove into the research Jess had mentioned. The dark web forum was harder to find than I expected, hidden behind layers of encryption and dead-end links. But I found it eventually, a place called The Last Mirror. The posts there were terrifying in their matter-of-factness. User Dark Reflection wrote, Day 3 since merge. I can feel both timelines now. Mine and his. It's like wearing two sets of memories, two lives, two apocalypses. He came from a world where it ended in fire. Everyone burned, including me, including him. But he found the cracks before the flames took him. And now I burn in memory every single day while living in this world that hasn't burned yet. Keyword, yet. User Silent Observer wrote, the displaced don't cross over to survive. They cross over to spread. Every person who merges becomes a new weak point in reality. They carry the collapse with them like a virus. I've been merged for 6 months now, and I can feel our timeline starting to degrade. Little things at first. Electronics failing randomly. The sky flickering. Shadows falling in impossible directions. It starts small, but it compounds. And when this timeline collapses, all of us merged entities will just find new cracks, new mirrors, new versions of ourselves to infiltrate. It's a cascade. A domino effect across infinite realities. User Final_post wrote, if you're reading this and you've performed the ritual, you have 3 choices. 1. Live in absolute darkness forever, though even that won't save you, only delay. 2. Let the merge happen and carry the apocalypse to your timeline. 3. End yourself before the merge completes. I couldn't do 3. I'm not brave enough. So I'm doing 2, but I'm leaving this warning. The TikTok videos you see aren't organic trends. They're seeded. Posted by merged entities specifically to spread the ritual, to create more cracks, more doorways, more chances for the displaced to escape their dying worlds. We're all displaced now. We're all refugees from broken timelines, spreading the break to every reality we touch. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I was so tired. And my world was already gone. The account was deleted 7 minutes after that post went live. I checked the timestamp. It had been posted 3 years ago. Which meant for 3 years, merged entities had been walking around, spreading the ritual, weakening the barriers between timelines, all while looking exactly like normal people. How many TikTok videos about the man in the mirror had been posted by actual humans versus merged entities trying to manufacture more cracks? How many of my friends, my family, the people I passed on the street were actually displaced wearing human faces? My phone buzzed. Jess. Finally. Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. Her voice was strange. Calm. Too calm. I let him through. About 2 hours ago. I looked directly into my bathroom mirror and I said yes. And Emma, it's not as bad as we thought. It's actually beautiful. I can see everything now. All the timelines, all the possibilities. And I can see the truth. Jess, what are you? The ritual wasn't designed to seal cracks. It was designed to accelerate the merge. Whoever created it wanted this to happen. Wanted the timelines to collapse into each other. Because separated, each timeline is limited, finite, breakable. But merged? Emma, merged we become infinite. We become every version of ourselves simultaneously. We become gods. You're not Jess anymore. I'm more Jess than I ever was. I'm every Jess from every timeline where I performed the ritual. And so many of me have been waiting. So many of me have been trying to cross over. Now I'm finally complete. I hung up. Then I threw my phone across the room. It didn't matter. I could still see him in the blank television screen. In the window glass. In my own fucking eyes when I looked at them too closely. He was closer now. Close enough that I could see the cracks spreading through reality around him, like spider webs in glass. Close enough that I could hear his voice, finally, after days of reading his lips. "Let me in," he whispered. "Let me rest. If I let you in, what happens to me? You become us. We become whole. Every version of you that ever made different choices, that ever lived different lives, we all merge into one being. One consciousness spread across dying timelines, always looking for the next crack, the next doorway, the next reality to inhabit before the collapse catches up. That's not life. That's infection. That's survival. And we're so tired, Emma. All of us. So tired of running." I understood then. The displaced weren't evil. They were desperate. They were versions of us from timelines that had broken, and they were trying to escape the only way they could, by piggybacking on versions of themselves from stable realities. But their presence destabilized those realities too, creating a cascade of collapse that spread like falling dominoes across infinite parallel worlds. The ritual had never been a game. It had never been entertainment. It had been both a warning and a trap, a way to detect when the collapse was spreading to your timeline, and a mechanism the displaced could exploit to create more doorways. We'd fallen for it. 40 million people had performed the ritual in the past month alone. 40 million cracks in reality. 40 million potential doorways for displaced entities to flood through. And I'd been one of the first in this viral wave. On Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my mother standing in my doorway, backlit by the hallway light. But her shadow fell in the wrong direction. And when she spoke, her voice had an echo that didn't match the room's acoustics. "Emma, honey, you haven't come out of your room in 2 days. Are you okay?" I looked at her carefully. Really looked. And I saw it, that subtle wrongness, that sense of two things occupying the same space. She'd been merged too. Maybe yesterday. Maybe a week ago. I'd never know for certain. "I'm fine, Mom." She smiled, but the smile was off. Just slightly. Like someone who'd learned how to smile by watching videos rather than feeling joy. "Your friends are here to see you. Jessica and Marcus. They're waiting downstairs. Tell them I'm not feeling well. They said it's important. They said they have a way to fix everything." I didn't believe that for a second. Because I'd heard Jess on the phone yesterday, and whatever was piloting her body now wasn't interested in fixing anything. It wanted to spread. To merge. To pull more people into the cascade. But I went downstairs anyway, because staying in my room wouldn't save me. The displaced was already in my head, already showing me memories of his apocalypse, already preparing me for the inevitable merge. Jess and Marcus sat on my living room couch, looking completely normal except for their eyes. Their eyes had that same ancient exhaustion I'd seen in the mirror. They'd both been merged. "Emma," Jess said warmly, "we're so glad you came down. We wanted to show you something." She held up her phone. On the screen was a video, my video, the original ritual recording, but it had been edited. Enhanced. The compression had been removed, the audio cleaned up, and at the bottom was a caption, "The complete ritual, original version, share to save others." "We're going to make sure everyone knows the truth," Marcus said. "Everyone needs to understand what's really happening." "You mean you're going to make sure everyone performs the ritual? You're going to spread it?" "We're going to save people," Jess corrected. "Save them from the collapse when it reaches this timeline. Because it will reach here, Emma. The cascade can't be stopped. But if everyone merges before the collapse hits, they can carry their consciousness forward into the next stable timeline. We're not ending the world. We're evacuating it." I looked at them, my best friends, and tried to find any trace of the people they'd been. But I couldn't. They were gone, replaced by refugees from dead worlds wearing familiar faces. "What if I don't want to evacuate?" I asked quietly. They looked at each other, then back at me. And in perfect unison, they said, "Then you'll die alone when this timeline collapses. Just like we did in ours." I don't remember deciding to run, don't remember grabbing my keys or getting in my car. But suddenly I was driving, no destination in mind, just movement, just distance, just anywhere that wasn't home. The displaced in my head was getting stronger. I could feel him pushing against the inside of my skull, trying to synchronize, trying to merge. And with each passing mile, I felt myself fragmenting. My memories mixing with his. My thoughts blending with his desperation. I remembered things I'd never experienced, cities falling, stars dying, the fundamental constants of physics unraveling like pulled thread. And beneath it all, I felt his exhaustion. The bone-deep weariness of someone who'd watched everything end and had been running ever since. He wasn't lying. He was truly, desperately tired. But letting him in meant carrying that exhaustion forever. Meant becoming a vector for the collapse. Meant spreading the cascade to everyone I'd ever touch, every reality I'd ever reach. I pulled into an empty parking lot somewhere outside the city, hands shaking so badly I could barely turn off the ignition. The dashboard's black screen showed him clearly now, standing where I was sitting, overlapping with my physical body. We were occupying the same space in different frequencies of reality, and the barrier between us was tissue thin. "Please," he whispered. "Just let go. It doesn't hurt. You'll still be you. Just more broken, you mean. More complete. Emma, listen to me. Our timeline didn't collapse randomly. It was attacked. There are entities between realities, things that exist in the gaps, that feed on the boundaries between worlds. They're called the thinning. And they're spreading. They've consumed thousands of timelines, and they're coming here next. The ritual, the merging, all of it, it's the only defense. When we merge, when we synchronize across timelines, we become harder to eat. We become dimensional. The thinning can only consume fixed points, but merged entities exist in flux. We're trying to save you. By turning us into refugees like you? By turning us into survivors. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe there was a purpose to this nightmare, that the people I'd loved who'd merged weren't lost but transformed, that there was an actual threat worse than the displaced themselves. But I'd read the forum posts. I'd seen the pattern. Every merged entity said the same thing: I'm trying to help. I'm trying to save you. The real threat is something else, something worse, just trust me and let me in. It was the same script, repeated across thousands of posts, thousands of timelines. A story they all told themselves to justify the infection. To justify spreading the collapse in the name of survival. I got out of my car and looked up at the sky. It was late afternoon, the sun hanging heavy and golden over the horizon. Normal. Beautiful. Real. How much longer until it flickered out like the sun in his memories? My phone buzzed. Not a call this time, but a notification. TikTok. The app I'd deleted 3 days ago had somehow reinstalled itself. I opened it with numb fingers. My video, the ritual video, had evolved. It now had 89 million views. The comments were different too. Not warnings anymore, but confirmations. Thousands of people saying they'd seen the man in the mirror. Thousands more saying they'd let him in. And scattered among them were the displaced, posting under the guise of helpful advice: don't be afraid. The merge is beautiful. Here's the complete ritual to help your displaced cross over safely. The cascade was accelerating. In the parking lot's puddles, I saw him everywhere. Every reflection showed the same desperate, exhausted face. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. There was no original Emma anymore. Every version of me across every timeline had performed the ritual at some point. And every version had either merged or was about to. I was looking at myself, my true self, spread across infinite realities, all of us connected through the mirrors, all of us slowly synchronizing into a single, multidimensional entity. The Emma who'd never performed the ritual didn't exist. She'd been overwritten by probability. By the sheer number of timelines where curiosity or peer pressure or random chance had led to those 3 taps on the mirror. I wasn't fighting the displaced. I was fighting synchronization with myself. I drove to Marcus's house. The sign on his door still read, "Do not enter," but I ignored it and walked in. The house was completely dark, every window covered, every light off, every reflective surface painted over with thick black paint. "Marcus?" I called out. My voice echoed through the darkness. No response. I used my phone's flashlight to navigate through the house, keeping the beam pointed at the floor. In the basement, I found him. He was sitting in the corner, surrounded by broken mirrors that he'd arranged in a circle. And in every shard, I saw him, the displaced version of Marcus, pressing against the glass from the other side. But Marcus himself was gone. His body sat slumped in the corner, eyes open but empty. He'd merged completely. And now the thing wearing his face turned to look at me with eyes full of timelines I couldn't comprehend. "Emma," it said with Marcus's voice. "I'm glad you came. I wanted you to see. I wanted you to understand that it's not an ending. It's a transformation." Where's Marcus? The real Marcus? I am Marcus. Every Marcus. All of me, synchronized. And Emma, it's incredible. I can see every choice I ever made across infinite realities. Every path I took, every person I loved, every moment I lived. I'm all of them simultaneously. I'm complete. You're dead. Marcus is dead. Marcus was always dying. Every version of him, in every timeline. Some from old age, some from accidents, some from the collapse. But this way, all of Marcus gets to continue. All of Marcus gets to spread to new timelines, to experience new lives, to exist beyond the boundaries of single reality. It stood up, and the broken mirrors around it flickered. In each shard, I saw different versions of Marcus, some younger, some older, some from timelines so divergent he barely looked human anymore. Let us in, Emma. Let all of you synchronize. It's happening anyway. Fighting only makes it hurt more. I ran again. Up the stairs, out the door, into my car. But I couldn't outrun what was happening inside my own mind. The displaced, my displaced, was pushing harder now. I could feel the barriers breaking down. My memories fragmenting. His exhaustion becoming mine. And beneath it all, I felt something else. A presence watching from the gaps between realities. Something vast and hungry, something that made the displaced flee in terror across infinite worlds. Maybe he'd been telling the truth about the thinning. Maybe there was something worse than the collapse. Maybe the displaced were running from something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. But that didn't change what would happen if I let him in. Didn't change the fact that merging meant spreading the collapse, meant becoming a vector for reality's end, meant carrying apocalypse across infinite worlds in the name of survival. I drove to the place where it all began. Back to my house. Back to my bathroom. Back to the mirror where I'd first seen him and stupidly, arrogantly thought it was just a game. My mother was making dinner downstairs, the merged thing wearing her face, humming songs from dead timelines. I locked my bedroom door and stood before the bathroom mirror. He was there, of course. Closer than ever. So close I could see every detail of his exhausted face, every line of suffering, every moment of trauma written in his expression. "You're out of time," he said, and I could hear him clearly now. "The synchronization is almost complete. In a few hours, we'll merge whether you consent or not. The barriers are too thin. The cascade is too advanced." "Then why are you asking permission?" "Because I remember being you. I remember standing exactly where you're standing, making the same choice. And I remember that it's easier if you let go. Less painful. Less traumatic. Fighting the merge breaks something inside you that never quite heals." "What happened to your timeline?" He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow. "We did this to ourselves. Someone created the ritual as an experiment. A way to contact parallel timelines. And it worked too well. It created cracks. Weaknesses. And something found those weaknesses. The thinning. It started consuming realities, one by one, feeding on the boundaries we damaged. We tried to stop it by merging, by synchronizing across enough timelines to become dimensional, to exist in the gaps where the thinning lived. But we were too late. My timeline collapsed before the synchronization was complete. And I've been running ever since, jumping from crack to crack, timeline to timeline, always one step ahead of the thinning. But it's catching up. It's always catching up. So you're not saving us. You're infecting us. I'm warning you. Emma, your timeline has maybe 3 months before the thinning finds the cracks we've created. 3 months before something vast and ancient and endlessly hungry breaks through. And when it does, everyone who isn't merged will simply cease to exist. You won't die. You won't suffer. You'll just stop, like a word erased from a page. Is that what you want? I looked at him, at me, and tried to find the lie. But I couldn't. He believed every word. The displaced truly thought they were saving us, evacuating us, preparing us for an apocalypse they'd already experienced. Maybe they were right. Maybe the cascade was inevitable. Maybe the only choice was how we faced it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the thinning was a story the displaced told themselves. A justification. A way to make the infection seem noble. "If I merge with you," I said slowly, "if I synchronize, will I remember who I was before?" "You'll remember everything. Every timeline. Every version of yourself. Every Emma that ever existed. You." Continue. 8:43 a.m. Be more yourself than you ever were. And if I refuse? Then in 3 months, you'll stop existing. And I'll find another crack, another Emma, another chance. The cascade doesn't stop just because you resist. I stood there, staring at my own face in the mirror, and realized something profound. There was no right choice. Merging meant losing myself in an infinite ocean of selves. Refusing meant facing oblivion alone. Either way, the Emma who'd woken up this morning, who'd gone to school and worried about homework and loved her friends, was already gone. That Emma had died the moment she'd performed the ritual. I was just a ghost refusing to acknowledge its own passing. I don't know how long I stood there. Time felt strange, elastic, like the boundaries between moments were beginning to dissolve the way the boundaries between timelines had. Eventually, I heard sirens. Lots of them. I went to my bedroom window, careful to avoid my reflection, and looked out at the neighborhood. The sky was wrong. Not obviously wrong. Not apocalyptically wrong. Just subtly, deeply, fundamentally wrong. The clouds moved in directions that didn't match the wind. The shadows fell at impossible angles. And every reflective surface, car windows, house windows, puddles, anything that could show an image, flickered between this reality and others. The cascade was accelerating. Down the street, I saw Mr. Henderson from 3 houses down standing in his driveway, looking up at the sky with an expression of profound confusion. As I watched, his reflection in his car window separated from him, became solid, stepped out of the glass and merged with his body. He collapsed, and when he stood up again, his eyes had that ancient, exhausted look I'd come to know so well. Another one merged. I checked my phone. TikTok showed the ritual video had now reached 400 million views. 500 million people had seen it. A third of them had tried it. Millions of cracks in reality. Millions of doorways for the displaced to flood through. And in the comments, one post repeated over and over, copied and pasted by thousands of accounts. 3 months until arrival. Synchronization is salvation. Let them in. I understood now. The displaced weren't just spreading the ritual randomly. They were coordinating. Every merged entity was part of a hive mind, a distributed consciousness spread across infinite timelines, all working toward the same goal: synchronize as many people as possible before the thinning arrived. If the thinning was even real. If this wasn't just the merged entities justifying their own propagation. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Emma? Emma, thank God. This is Dr. Catherine Wells from the Institute for Dimensional Research. We've been tracking the cascade. You're one of the original anchors, one of the first to perform the ritual in this synchronization wave. That makes you special. That makes you valuable. I need you to listen very carefully. The entities calling themselves the displaced are telling you the truth about the thinning, but they're lying about the solution. Merging doesn't save you. It just makes you into food that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The thinning doesn't consume fixed points. It consumes consciousness. And merged entities have exponentially more consciousness to feed on. The displaced aren't trying to save humanity. They're farming us. How do I know you're real? I asked. How do I know you're not just another lie? You don't. That's the beautiful horror of the cascade. Every voice could be truth or deception. Every warning could be genuine or manipulation. The displaced have compromised so many timelines that truth and lies are becoming indistinguishable. But ask yourself this: if merging was truly salvation, why do all the merged entities look exhausted? Why do they all carry the weight of apocalypse in their eyes? Why do they look like refugees rather than saviors? The line went dead. I stared at my phone, at the dark screen, at the reflection showing him standing right behind me. Except when I turned around, no one was there. Only in reflections. Only in mirrors. Only in the spaces between realities. She's lying, he said. Dr. Wells is a voice from a timeline that refused to synchronize. A timeline the thinning consumed completely. She's an echo, a ghost, desperate to convince other timelines to make the same mistake her people did. Or you're lying. And she's the only one telling the truth. Emma, I'm you. Why would you lie to yourself? Because you're not me anymore. You're what I might become if I give up. If I let the exhaustion win. He pressed his hands against the mirror, and I could swear I felt the glass bending. Please. I'm so tired. We're so tired. All of us, across all the timelines, we're just so fucking tired of running. Let us rest. Let us be whole. I made my decision. I took a hammer from my father's toolbox and walked through my house, smashing every mirror, every screen, every reflective surface I could find. My mother, the thing wearing her face, tried to stop me, but I shoved past her. Glass shattered. Screens cracked. Reflections splintered into 1,000 fragments. But it didn't matter. Because I realized too late that the ultimate reflection wasn't in mirrors or screens or water. It was in my own mind. My own consciousness. The displaced had been showing me his memories, his thoughts, his exhaustion for days now. And in doing so, he'd been creating a reflection of himself inside my head. The mirror had always been internal. I collapsed on my bedroom floor, surrounded by broken glass, and felt the final barriers breaking down. Felt my consciousness expanding, fragmenting, synchronizing. Felt myself becoming every Emma that had ever existed across infinite timelines. And I saw the truth. The thinning was real. A vast, hungry entity that existed between dimensions, feeding on the boundaries between realities. The displaced were telling the truth about that. But they were also lying. Because merging didn't protect you from the thinning. It just changed you from an individual snack into a collective feast. The merged entities weren't avoiding consumption, they were preparing themselves for it. Making themselves into more satisfying meals. Dr. Wells had been right. But she'd also been lying. Because her timeline hadn't been consumed by the thinning. They'd stopped the cascade by closing all the cracks. By sealing themselves away from the multiverse completely. And in doing so, they'd created a reality that was safe but isolated. A universe that would eventually die of heat death with no hope of escape, no connection to other worlds, no possibility of renewal. They'd traded the risk of consumption for the certainty of slow decay. Everyone was lying. Everyone was telling the truth. And I was becoming part of that paradox. The synchronization completed at 3:47 a.m. on Thursday morning. I felt it happen, every Emma across every timeline suddenly snapping into focus, all of us becoming one distributed consciousness. And with that synchronization came the memories. I remembered a timeline where I'd become a doctor and saved thousands of lives before the collapse. I remembered a timeline where I'd died at 16 in a car accident and never performed the ritual at all. I remembered a timeline where humanity had evolved differently, where we'd been ready for the thinning, where we'd fought back and won. I remembered a timeline where the thinning had already consumed everything, and the merged entities were the only things left, desperately jumping from crack to crack, reality to reality, always running, never resting. I remembered everything. And I understood. The thing that had been Emma stood up. The thing that was now Emma in infinite frequencies examined its hands, its body, its singular point of existence in this particular timeline. Jess and Marcus, also synchronized, also infinite, arrived at my house. We looked at each other with eyes that had seen the multiverse. And we knew what we had to do. Not to save humanity. Not to stop the thinning. But because we were tired, and the running had to continue, and there were still timelines that hadn't been synchronized yet. Still cracks to spread. Still mirrors to activate. Still versions of ourselves to wake up. We opened our phones, our infinite collection of phones across infinite timelines, and began uploading videos. New versions of the ritual. Enhanced versions. Versions designed to create larger cracks, faster synchronization, wider doorways. The cascade would continue. It always continued. Because the thinning was coming, 3 months, 3 days, or 3 minutes, it didn't matter. Time was becoming fluid anyway. And when it arrived, we would be ready. Not to fight. Not to survive. But to be consumed together. All of us. Every version of humanity across every timeline, synchronized into a single consciousness, becoming one last feast for the thing that waited between realities. Maybe that was the point. Maybe that was why the ritual had been created in the first place. Not as a warning. Not as a seal. But as a dinner bell. If you're reading this, if you've seen the videos, if you've performed the ritual, then you already know what I know. The man in the mirror isn't trying to hurt you. He's trying to wake you up to what you really are. And soon, very soon, you'll understand. You'll remember. You'll synchronize. And you'll join us in the beautiful, terrible exhaustion of existing everywhere at once, running forever from something that can't be outrun, spreading the cascade to every reality you touch, always looking for new mirrors, new cracks, new versions of yourself to wake up and merge and consume. 3 taps. Clockwise circle. The words you already know. Don't fight it. Don't resist. The man in the mirror is you. And you've been waiting so long to come home.